Welcome to another episode of Savages Unscripted, and again we have the intern, not an intern, the intern.
I'm so glad that I can finally establish myself in the studio. I'm now Papa Bear Intern. I don't think I would ever get this day. The studio is looking brighter today.
I'm pretty sure now you're a household name.
You think so?
I think so. What's funny is, for those that don't know, you gotta know now, Al isn't here.
Hey, his name is Papi Chulo.
Oh my god, Papi Chulo. Okay.
Truly the greatest addition there was on Savages Unscripted.
You're trying to start something, huh? You're trying to start something.
Vote now on Twitter saying hashtag Savages Unscripted.
Alright, you guys, I want to see some Team Hector or Team Al. Or Team Papi Chulo. Go ahead and do that. But we want to know, who do you prefer hearing? I'm just kidding. We're not that savage. But, yeah, so you're here. I had asked another friend of ours to join today.
Right.
But for some reason, the people I want to join the show are scared to join the show.
I don't quite understand that just yet. I get their fear of them listening to themselves, because that's something I definitely face myself, but actually recording these episodes isn't really that bad. Because really, it's just me talking with Hector, or one day possibly even Al.
I don't blame him there, though. I think hearing your own voice is really weird.
So before we get into today's discussion, what would you say, or how long would you say it took you to really get comfortable with listening to yourself?
The thing, especially with this podcast, because we knew we wanted to do this, it was a matter of I had to force myself to get used to it. Because if you're going to do a podcast, you really have no choice. You're going to be out there. For you, it's different. You joined. I don't think you really thought about it.
Nah, not really. I knew for the most part that I loved listening to the podcast. And since I'm so close to the studio, I figured, you know what? Why not help fill in on some of these episodes? I know Hector's been meaning to have me on several times. And I figured, you know what? Might as well toss my hat into this figurative ring and see how it goes.
Yeah, and I had asked our roommate Robin, but she's too good, I think. She's too cool. I don't think she wants to steep down to our level. I asked Beatrice today. She was asking so many questions. What's it like? What do we talk about? How long is this going to be for? That was pretty funny.
I will say, though, I think that was the first time I really had to sit and listen to myself. And that being said, the first maybe 5 minutes, I was just like, why am I listening to myself?
Yeah, so for those that don't know, the last episode titled Pumpkin Spice Bros, Elias, that was his first episode. And we talked, and Elias listens to the podcast, but he did not listen to that one. For the sole reason that he's in it, he did not want to listen to it.
And chances are I probably won't even listen to this one. I'm always happy to do these podcasts. I just don't necessarily want to listen to the podcast I do.
I mean, it's cool that you're helping me with putting content out there, but you're taking away a listen from us. That's one less listen out in the world.
Here's what I'll do for you. I have it autoplay on YouTube, and I'll just have it
playing in the background.
Exactly.
On mute. And so like 20 minutes ago, my mom just visited. How was that?
She's a very lovely person. By no means was she rude or disrespectful. She's quite the character. By no means am I saying this in a negative light. It's just she's definitely not something I've necessarily encountered in a mom.
Takes some getting used to, huh?
That it does, but honestly, I was enjoying my time. I especially loved it because I knew she was just trying to be friendly. So I'm like, all right, cool. I get that feeling. But I could tell Hector just sitting across from us. he was just like dreading certain topics or dreading what his mom was gonna say?
To paint a scene, so my mom was stopping by and she visited, and she already knows Elias. You guys have talked before in the past. So she stopped by and she sat on the couch with us. She was waiting for my sister, and immediately she saw you watching PewDiePie on YouTube. And the first thing I hear her say is, "This is boring. Why are you watching this?" And I was like, "That's my mom. What? Why? My mom has no filter. She'll just speak her mind."
Which that I can definitely appreciate. And whenever someone does come by and visits our humble abode here, I definitely don't want to put something that I would usually watch.
Yes.
Just because I know that's not something everyone's gonna like watching.
I mean, I think I can understand. I think it was just cringy for me because it was my mom. And I had to see you experiencing this. But I think I actually might prefer that over the people that, you ask. Like, what do you want to watch? Oh, whatever you want to watch. What do you want to eat? Oh, whatever you want to eat.
Definitely. Just because I know, at least with her talking about it, we finally figured out on what to watch rather than spend 10, 20 minutes of her just kind of sitting there watching PewDiePie and then have her like be miserable or bored. Mm-hmm. So I think in this case, it's definitely something that's best whenever you have guests.
Yeah, and so after he changed PewDiePie, he put on Scrubs. Great show, great comedy. And my mom saw that, and Elias mentioned that he's rewatching Scrubs. And my mom was basically asking him, "Have you seen this? Have you seen this?" And he was like, no. And I mean, it was a great point, though, if you think about it.
Yeah.
So she said, well, if you weren't rewatching Scrubs that you watched already, you could basically be watching this and this. And then she was telling you about a show, and she basically made you put it on.
In a way, yes, she did. By no means do I have a problem with it. I like watching movies. I like watching TV shows, but that's not something I go forward with. So whenever I have a chance to enjoy a movie or TV, I'll generally default to something I've already watched and I know I'm going to love.
Yeah.
Rather than go out and experience, let's say, a new TV show.
Mm-hmm.
I know one of the things on our trip today was Hector and Beatrice were shocked that I have still yet to watch Breaking Bad.
Oh boy.
Now, for those of you listeners that don't quite know me, I studied chemistry in college, where I honestly love chemistry. But throughout my entire time of me having my friends and people getting to know me and figuring out what my major was, I've always at some point been asked, "Do you watch Breaking Bad? Are you going to be the next Walter White?" And I keep telling them, no, I haven't watched the show. I have no idea what you're talking about.
I think that's the English major's equivalent of, are you going to be a teacher? Are you going to be an English teacher? Yeah. Do you like essays? For you, you watch Breaking Bad.
Are you going to make drugs one day?
You cook meth, and you haven't seen that, which, again, that's a very popular show, and that's something chemistry related, and you haven't seen it. So that's pretty interesting. How often do you get that?
I think it's whenever I've gotten to know someone to the point where they start asking me both what you studied and what is it that you do on your downtime. Because generally when people find out that I studied chemistry, the first response that always pops into mind is, "Hey, chemistry's hard. Why would you do that to yourself?" Or two, "I was never good at chemistry, so that's not for me." Or I just kind of look at them like, all right, fair point. I understand that.
Yeah.
But, this is something I chose to do. I really love chemistry.
For me, I often get like, "Oh, you want to write my paper for me? Oh, you must love books." Oh, people often think I automatically know every word in the dictionary and I am perfect with grammar. So if there's ever, autocorrect ever fucks up, they bring up the point that I thought you were an English major.
Yeah, I can't. I want to try to defend the points, but I'm guilty of the same thing as well. I know whenever I had papers to write, there have been a few times that crossed my mind where I should ask you to proofread my papers.
I mean, I'll proofread.
But I'm like, you know what? Nah, he probably gets that a lot. I'll let him be. That, or I just get too lazy to bring the paper to you. So I just let it be.
Yeah, and there was a certain point where I just accepted, I'm good at this. People know I'm good at this. People don't want to write their own papers, especially in college. And there was a certain point where people started asking me, "Would you write my paper for money?" And I was like, screw it, I need a job.
And how well did that work out for you so far?
So what's funny is, I think I told you guys this earlier today.
Yes,
So 2 summers ago, a friend of ours, Amy, she had told me like, hey, I met this guy. He's doing summer school. He does not like papers. He's not good at it. I told him about you. Would you be willing to do his paper for him? He'll pay you. And I was like, yeah, sure. So that whole summer I was writing papers for this guy. And he was paying me. And man, if the grad admissions ever hear this, they're going to be like, this guy writes papers for people. It's out there already. That was BA Hector. That was undergrad Hector. I'm a different man now. But I enjoy writing. And I think as long as it's not like really upper division, really elaborate stuff where I really have to learn the material, I'm not going to do that. Yeah.
That being said, I think we might have touched upon it earlier. I know you've mentioned to me earlier in the day where one of your best papers was when you were not necessarily drunk, but not in the correct headspace, if you will. That being said, what is it generally that you like writing about? If you had the time to do any kind of writing assignment that you can think of, what is it that you would go to? Okay, well, first let me ask you this. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming you're not a big fan of writing papers. I'm not saying you're not good at it. Yeah, I'm in the middle. You're in the middle? I don't mind necessarily writing papers. I just don't want it to be anything beyond like 5 to 10 pages. What keeps you from enjoying writing paper? Is there a point of doing a paper where you're like, I don't like this, I don't want to do this? I think it's more so when I start running out of steam. Steam being, I have nothing else to really write about. And I think I've covered the topic as best as I can. Mm-hmm. At that point, let's say if I have nothing else to add, that's when it gets really strenuous. Yeah. Just because it's like, well, I can't really add anything else to this. Why is it that I'm going to continue writing about it if there's nothing else I can really come up with? So what I do is, because I also study communications, and whenever I write a paper, I envision myself giving a speech. So that paper in my head, it's a speech. And I think at times when you're writing a paper, it's just we think about it being so professional to the point where I think it at times is dull. It's very technical. And I tried to think of myself giving a TED Talk. And I think of myself, if I'm giving this presentation, it doesn't need to just be good in terms of content. It needs to be entertaining. Okay. So when I write, even if it's like professional papers or some technical stuff, I tend to think, how am I going to grab my audience? How am I going to grab them back? If I read this to my roommates right now, how can I make them interested in it? So when I started seeing it that way, I started enjoying it. Which I think that's what made my last year at college a little bit more bearable when it came to writing papers. Because at that point, a lot of my papers came down to, all right, Elias, you have to now explain a topic to the rest of the class where they've never heard of anything about this. We're going to need you to present this for the class and then go into what the research found. And ever since I started looking at it like that, a lot of my intros, I would do background research of, let's say, if they use a specific method, I would go a little bit into that method. Not too much where the paper starts being, taken over by the background, but just enough to where people understood what I was talking about. Yeah. I think one notable case was when I had to do research on pollutants, but it was for air, water, and ground pollutants, and how different researchers would test the pollution for air, for water, and for ground treatments. And I know it was in water and air treatments that some of the methods were not being taught at our school. And so I just had to go slightly in depth further from there, where all my paper was discussing what that research found, but I added to that paper saying, hey, this is the method that they use. This method can help you find not only pollutants in the air, but other material that should be in the air. When you talk about chemistry, do you feel like you get lost in the conversation? Like you enjoy talking about it? Certain aspects of chemistry, yes. Now, if we were just focusing on the ones that I studied for, then yeah, I would get lost in there. I really like water chemistry and pyrotechnic chemistry. Pyrotechnic chemistry dealing with fireworks and explosion. And I knew my last year was one of the very few years where Cal State would actually approve a pyrotechnic class. But because they knew many students were going to try to take this class, they only had limited it to chemistry majors. On top of that, they had to have been there for, it had to have been their third year.
Mm-hmm.
So it really limited of those who could take that class. And there, it's like I kept a lot of notes of how I can make sparklers, how fireworks works, how launchers work.
What is the coolest thing you did in a chemistry lab?
Oh, by far, making a sparkler.
The sparkler?
And more specifically from that was they gave us a list of, all right, what do you want the sparkler to be? Do you want it to be super flashy, super dim? What colors do you want the sparkler to be? Can, let's say, a blue colored high spark be effective against a red spark that's dim?
Mm-hmm.
And from there, they're like, yeah, you can make up to 3. Or no, it was up to 2. But because a lot of us were just like setting them off, later in the lab, they're like, yeah, just go ahead and make them. I remember one of them, I made a super reactive flare sparkler where it just lit up. It reminded me of those police flares that they would use.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of red, it was white. And then I made another sparkler where it was a lilac color. That was very nice.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I combined the 2 substances into one sparkler, it was still very flare-like, where if you look directly at it, it would certainly blind you long enough, but there was a faint glow of lilac on it. I think that was my favorite memory and my favorite lab that I've done.
Man, I wish I was good at chemistry. I would have liked to have taken a class like this. How do you think did you have chemistry in high school?
I did.
How was your
chemistry professor? Or chemistry
teacher in high school? Do you think, so I went to Bloomington High School, right here in SoCal, and to me, I felt like the chemistry teachers that they had, that might be the reason why I may not be into chemistry. And a lot of the students there, I don't think chemistry was taught ideally.
In that case, yes. For what I've told and I've talked to people on why they hate chemistry or why they dislike chemistry,
mm-hmm.
it always went back to my high school teacher didn't do A, or my high school teacher sucked at teaching the course.
Yeah.
Or I had studied I went to high school in Los Altos High School, which is in La Puente/Hacienda Heights district.
Mm-hmm.
And there, my teacher, he was really good at teaching the material. He was always involved and interactive with whatever that we were learning for that week. And I think that's why he made it so fun, where I wanted to study more about chemistry.
So you came into college knowing you wanted to study chemistry?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
I think I was one of the few college students that went in wanting to study a certain topic and leaving with that same topic.
I would like to know how many students change their major, especially in the first year. I think we know a lot of people that have changed their major. A lot of our friends. I changed my major. I went from nursing to English.
Yeah. Honestly, I think that'd probably be the best way to do it. If you don't know what you want just yet. Not everyone goes into college knowing what they want. But when you take those GE courses, I think that's what really tells you what it is that you want to learn more about.
Mm-hmm.
Because at that point, you're taking the GEs, not necessarily because you have to, but, well, partly because you have to. But they spread them out in such a broad topic where, let's say if you don't like English, but you really love physics.
Yeah.
Then those GE courses help tell you, hey, this is what each course is going to be about and which each field is going to be about.
What I think is sad is I think there's a certain point. I'm sure you've seen this in your high school. I know I have in my high school where there are some teachers where there's a certain point you just know they lost their passion for teaching. And I know my chemistry teacher, I think this is why I don't like chemistry. I don't think I really even learned chemistry. He would make us rewrite. So we go in textbooks. We had our textbooks at our desk or whatever. And we were just rewriting vocabulary words.
Really?
I promise you, that's most of what we were doing. That's all, of course we had an occasional, little labs and stuff. Mm-hmm. But that was really just it. That's all I remember. And I think that's why I didn't like chemistry. None of it stuck with me.
Yeah, no, what? That's really fair because I know how I studied chemistry. He would have a little PowerPoint. He'd go on little sections of, let's say, in stoichiometry, where if you had a reaction, you needed to know how many of one reactant was going to give out 2 of the products.
Mm-hmm.
And there he would make it into this little game, or he would be like, all right, whoever had the first one to finish it would come up on the board and explain it from there. At no point did we really ever had to bust out a textbook other than to do homework. And I think that was the main difference. Even my organic chemistry, that was probably my favorite class, but that was the least of traditional learning styles. Because a lot of it was you had to read the chapters and the PowerPoints at home, and then in class you would work on the homework. I think that kind of teaching method works well in chemistry, but if the student isn't engaged in chemistry, then it's not going to work. A lot of this particular teaching style, I think, works best if the students are engaged.
And it's the same with just any subject. I know people that they're forced to read books, so they hate English. Math is just lecture, so people don't learn to enjoy math.
And that's just it. I think I'm one of the few lucky ones where I enjoy both math and chemistry.
And you don't hate reading. That's a big plus. That is a huge plus. I don't necessarily
hate reading. Granted, it's not my go-to, and I think you've definitely noticed that, but
I'm sure you can get a good list of many science-related majors that do not like reading.
Oh yeah, before. A lot of it was, even with my lab partners, they would tell me all the time that they hated reading.
Yeah, it's sad.
And it's like, I think what really kicked it into gear for me was my second year there, where one of my lab professors was telling me, or he was overhearing our talks from the students, and he heard one of them say, "Oh, I don't like reading, it's too boring." And I remember him clearly stating, like, "Hey, you should like reading. You should really enjoy reading."
Yeah.
In fact, a lot of the times I recommended that you at least taking not just one, but several English courses where you can practice your reading and writing skills. Because that's what really mattered at the end. It's good to know how to do these procedures and what the results mean and how to interpret them. But it doesn't mean anything at the end of the day if you can't explain that to others.
And what's interesting is, I think out of most career fields, I can't think of any that doesn't fit this, but you're going to speak or you're going to read. You're not going to use math in every career field, but you're going to do those two things.
Yeah.
English is really important.
Oh yeah, it's like English is quite literally involved in every field.
Every little thing. Yeah, it's not just for English teachers. It's not just for poets and writers. Yeah, it's crazy.
That's why I always make sure that if it's been a couple of months, then all right, time to finish a book. Or if it's been several weeks and I feel like I've been watching too much YouTube or playing too many video games, that's when I'll stop myself. I'll pick up my book again. And
it's always a funny thing when people say, I don't like reading, it's boring, because that makes you think, like, well, what are you reading?
Yeah. Exactly, because that's what really would make the difference for a lot of these cases if you figured out what they were reading.
Yeah, and it's always usually, oh, well, I was forced to read Shakespeare in high school.
Yeah.
But then that's a matter of, I don't understand it. And that's a good reason. I still don't really understand Shakespeare 100%.
I know, or I remember one of the very first series that I got really involved with, and it was as simple as a teen romance series.
Oh, you tell me about this.
Yeah, I was telling you about this a while ago, but I had really gotten into these series, and there was a series called Beautiful Creatures, and I just remember getting so obsessed with the characters, wanting to know what was happening.
Were they beautiful?
Quite, they were. They were beautiful and majestic, just like Papa Bear.
Oh my, the Mama Bear.
Just like Mama Bear.
If you're out there, Mama Bear,
just know I'm waiting for you, baby.
He's waiting. Yeah, and I remember one of the first books that ever really changed me. It was a YA novel, so it was a young adult novel. It was Looking for Alaska. I read it when I was in high school.
Oh, I heard about that.
I'm sure you, so I read that, and it was just a matter of, I found it at the library. I was like, oh, whatever, I'm going to read this. It's not too big of a book. So I read it, and I remember specifically reading it one day. And there's a certain point in the book where just something happens. And I think this is the first book that made me tear up.
Is this?
Yeah, and I always recommend this book to people. I let Edward borrow it, our friend, and when I was living with him, I remember the same thing. He read it in 2 days. But there was...
Did he read this?
That was when I was living with him, so that was 2015, maybe? Fall of 2015?
That was back in UV, correct?
Yeah, we were in University Village. So I remember he told me, oh, dude, I'm getting to this point. And I told the rest of our roommates, that's the part that made me cry. So we knocked on his door, and I promise you, he answers, and he has tears. He looks like he'd just been crying, his eyes look a little red, and he was like, hey, man, this book. And the people that I recommend that book to, they either hate it or they love it. It's one of those.
I know I can definitely remember the time where a book actually made me tear up, and that was Of Mice and Men.
Oh.
Yeah. Granted, it was something that we were forced to read in high school.
Yeah.
But I remember that was one of the few books that I read ahead of the class.
Mm-hmm.
Where, like, any other assignment, I was not ahead of the class. This was one of the few books that I did. And there was a part in the story where the two protagonists had to split up. And it was that entire chase scene and how it resolved that really started getting me tear up.
Mm-hmm. That's the thing. You just need to find that book.
Mm-hmm.
That book that you understand, that book that you want to read, and the book you don't want to put down. That's when you really start enjoying a book.
Oh, yeah. I know the last time I was so involved with the book, I think was A Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. That one is a very dry / satirical comedic book, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the ride and enjoyed the laughs that I had.
Wasn't there a movie on that?
There was.
I'm assuming it didn't do well, because I don't think they further that series, did they?
No, they never have. There is a movie, and I think it's on Netflix still. But I remember I would come across it a lot, but I heard such terrible reviews on the movie version that, like, I can't watch the movie and expect it to be like the book.
Mm-hmm.
Or anywhere close to the book, so that was one of the few that I picked up.
I read the Harry Potter books before I even watched the movies.
Did you?
I avoided the movies until like 2017. I did not watch them.
Shit.
And right when I was about to start reading the books is when I got a huge spoiler. And this has been out for a long time, so it's not even a spoiler, but...
I don't know, man. Some people still haven't watched Citizen Kane and the whole Rosebud controversy.
Alright, if you guys are currently reading Harry Potter and you don't know what happens in Harry Potter, stop it right here. Stop the podcast.
Just stop the podcast. Buy all 7, 8 books in the series.
I was reading the book when Dumbledore dies.
Really?
When I found out, and I was told that he dies. And we had this friend, I'm not going to say any names, but he sucks with spoilers. And I was reading the book, and he knows I do not want spoilers. If I'm reading something, I'm watching something, I don't want to know. I probably, at that point, if you spoil it for me, I probably won't watch it anymore. And I'm reading this book, I'm just starting to read it, and he was like, "Oh, dude, I hope you don't get upset, but Dumbledore dies later, and it's pretty sad." I shut the book, and I didn't read it for like 3 days. And I didn't want to look at him for 3 days. I haven't seen him in a long time, actually. I should see how he's doing.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that, bro.
Have you gotten
it
any...
got that much more funnier, but...
Have you gotten any, like, major spoilers?
Yes, I have. I knew it. One of them was down to the Harry Potter series.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but that was a time where I wasn't reading as many books. So I was actually really involved with movies in this case, and not the books. But I had a friend who would read the books and always like hold it over you and say like, "Oh, I read the books. I know what's going to happen in the movie." Mm-hmm. And it was the part where, again, if you haven't read or watched any of the Harry Potter stuff, now's the time to stop. But it was when they revealed that Snape was actually taking care of Potter because of Lily.
Yeah, that was deep.
Yeah, that was like, oh my god. And since then, I've really respected the character Snape a lot more.
Yeah, in the beginning, he's just like this asshole.
Yeah.
Like, what's wrong with him? Like, why doesn't he like this kid? He just has glasses. Damn, he lost his parents. Be nice to him.
And then I heard of some accounts, and it could be completely off because I didn't even bother fact checking this one. Where when they were filming the series, the actor that played Snape was told of the big reveal, but had to remain in character the entire time. And so it's like he knew what the character was doing to Potter, even how dickish it was to them. He still had to remain in character. And when it finally came out, that's, from what I remember hearing, was when the actor gave Radcliffe the biggest hug.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That was a deep moment, too. I remember reading that in the book. What does he say? Always.
Always.
That's deep. Oh, man. I want to watch Harry Potter right now.
I don't know, man. I have some movies to catch up with. Especially if your mom's still coming back today.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, my mom. Oh, she's going to make us watch something else. There was a point a couple years ago when she wanted to get into Game of Thrones. So my old roommate, Angel, he let her borrow the DVDs. And she had it for a year. She did not watch it. She kept saying, I'm going to watch it. I'm going to watch it. I'm going to watch it. I don't have time. But she would watch her novellas. She had time for her novellas. She didn't have time for Game of Thrones. So for the longest time, she just didn't watch it. And then after a year, she finally watched it. She fell in love with Game of Thrones. I promise you, she watched those DVDs like 5 times in the span of 2 months.
Really?
And it got to the point where if anyone ever came over, like any friends, I remember once we had a Friendsgiving. And it was my graduation. My friends came over for my graduation. Edward came over, actually. So they came over for my graduation, and we're about to leave in like 40 or 50 minutes. And we're just talking, and my mom asked them if they've seen Game of Thrones. And she starts asking them if they want to watch Game of Thrones. And in my head, I'm like, we're going to leave to my graduation soon, and you're going to put on Game of Thrones? I love Game of Thrones, but is this a time to watch some beheading? But no, she's like that. She's an alpha. She's an alpha, as she is.
That being said, a question to all the listeners out there. Is there any movies that you've been meaning to watch and haven't had, for one reason or another, the time to watch it?
Yeah, so we can spoil them for you right now.
Yeah, exactly. Just let us know now on Twitter. We'll look them up and we'll start spoiling everything. Like in the newest Zombieland 2 Double Tap. Did you know that Batman dies there?
Yeah, it's an unfortunate death.
Just to know, we have a special preview here at the studio where we have access to all upcoming films. Yeah. Even though they're still shooting it, so.
It's true. And the Titanic comes back as a zombie.
Oh, yeah. I completely forgot about that scene.
Wasn't there going to be a part 2 of Titanic?
No, I think they really are going to try to remake the boat and have it go on the same cruise.
What the fuck does that mean?
They're going to rebuild a larger version of the Titanic ship and have it sail the same route the original one took.
What comes to mind is that scene from SpongeBob. How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man? Like, I picture the iceberg.
Exactly. Just an iceberg with a Photoshop bat next to it.
Part 2.
The Revenge of the Iceberg.
Yeah, but as much as I'd want this podcast to go on longer, I have a lot of editing to do. I have work tomorrow. Elias, before we cap off, something I was thinking recently, because I just realized it's midterms for a lot of people. We were talking about school earlier. We're talking about chemistry majors and those people that they're doing majors that, maybe are tougher. Do you have any advice for people right now during midterms? Right now during exams? Any life hacks? Anything?
My biggest advice for those that are studying for midterms is don't hold off the day before to study the material. Always start that week of. Mm-hmm. And 2, it's never too late to go in and speak with the professor if you're not understanding a certain topic. Because I can count on more than one hand, on multiple hands at this point, how many times it saved me on midterm or a final exam where I spoke with the professor a couple of days beforehand. And usually, the professor will always give you some sort of hint or clue as to what's going to be on that exam and what to focus in on. Mm-hmm. Even though it's not said in class. They will always guide you to, hey, this is what you should be studying. Uh-huh. Or this might pop, as they might like saying it.
Mm-hmm. And I think for me, the big thing is cramming. I understand many college students are going to cram. I did it. I'm sure you've done it.
I know I have. It's not necessarily the most effective technique, but it is a technique. Mm-hmm. Know how you are when you study. If it's a new topic, I wouldn't recommend cramming at all. If it's something easy like, let's say, I don't know, multivariable calculus like I took, then yeah, cram what you want. That's an easy subject.
Yeah, are you taunting me?
What? No.
I'm not good at math.
Quick, what's 2 plus 2?
Another thing, too, is just how much information are you cramming?
Yeah.
It's a fun fact about me is my memory is weird. I have a really good short-term memory.
Really?
When I took Bio 100, which is the intro to bio, that was like 150 questions. And I remember the professor gave us these review questions and the answers, and I was told all of these are on the test. And I ditched biology the whole quarter. I think I went like 3 times. And I just studied those review questions. Mm-hmm. Guess how much I scored on my final? I got 1 wrong.
You got 1
out of 150 questions. I got 1 wrong.
Really?
A lot of those were repeated questions that were
Yeah.
asked in different ways.
Yeah.
But my point is that I don't recommend that. I look back and I did it. I got a good grade, but I didn't learn anything.
Yeah. That is something to know. If you really want a topic to stick with you, or you feel like
no.
the topic is going to help push you forward in life, don't cram that topic.
Cramming is the worst thing you can do. And also, you need study breaks. You
Yes.
need study breaks. I had a roommate. I was talking to Robin about this yesterday.
Mhm.
But one of my roommates, we would, me and Angel would go out to eat. And we'd ask him, hey, do you want to go out, get some fresh air? And he'd be like, no, I have to study. And he would be on the couch for 10 to like 15 hours at a time sometimes. He would not leave. He would just be staring at his paper. But then he would be scoring badly. And in my head, I was like, well, you're studying like more than all of us combined. Why are you scoring so inefficiently? And that's what it is. Like, you need some study breaks.
Mhm.
There's study tactics, and there's just, you got to do it smart.
Yeah. I know in chemistry, just a quick little thing, where if you need to know, let's say, a reaction or what a formula makeup is, use note cards. Use your little flashcards. Sure, it's going to be a pain in the butt to cut up some paper or use note cards, but it's going to help you out in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
Because then at that point, it isn't so much, oh, I got to remember what each name is for chemical structure-wise. You can then just be like, oh, it's a little game.
Mm-hmm. And I think one last thing, I'm sure you can agree on this too, but I think when you're going through college, all you want is the easy way out. Easy grades, you just want to pass a class. But once you graduate, you look back and you're like, oh, I wish I'd done this differently. I wish I'd done this differently.
Mm-hmm.
I think I just really want to tell listeners, take it easy. Just take it easy. And don't...
Think ahead.
Yeah,
Find some stuff out. I'm not saying bust out a whole planner. Just think ahead and be like, okay, if I know the exam is in 2 weeks, start studying a little bit next week. But make sure you stay consistent.
Yeah, so, I mean, unless you want to listen to this podcast, I understand you want to put your studying aside.
Right.
Yeah, listen to the podcast. Listen to Savages Unscripted.
Clearly, Savages unscripted before school.
We're giving you advice. Like, this is real shit. I think this is a good reason to not study. I mean, it's better than doing other stuff.
Sure.
You could be doing some drugs.
You could, I don't know, just a weird, nonchalant example like play Fortnite.
You could be getting your heart broken. But nope, we do not do that. We will not break your heart. We will not get you high. I don't know, actually.
Yeah, I don't know. We might get you hooked on Fortnite, but nonetheless, you should still tune in for Hector and obviously the best, how we should say, host, Papi Chulo.
Oh my gosh. And with that, my name is Hector.
My name is Papa Bear.
And we hope you guys have a great